And when we unwrap this narrative, we see that Habakkuk the prophet experienced a frustration, and then his faith, like our faith, was itself frustrating. When I think of faith, I put it into two broad categories. There is inspired faith. That's the faith that encourages us, excites us when we hear teaching, when we hear sermons, Bible classes, when we enjoy worship, when we get to hear spirited singing. We are inspired in our faith. There comes a time in everyone's life where we get that second category of interrupted faith. That is when life happens, when someone happens, when death comes, when sickness comes, when unemployment comes, when the frustrations of the human existence creep in without an invitation. We dig deep within our faith trying to find something to help us to navigate the difficult days. And frustrating experiences can be so overwhelming that even the most versed person in Scripture will come to question the Scriptures that he has believed. There are times we examine the songs that we have been singing and we wonder if there's anything to this faith thing. Why is this happening? Why is life frustrating us? And we keep talking to God, and it seems as if our prayers fall on deaf ears. Our prayers seem to fall on deaf ears, and we wonder, does God care? That is the reality of Habakkuk as he considers all that is going on around him. There is a political mess, there's a social mess, there's a spiritual unrest. And Habakkuk has obviously been talking to God, and what's interesting is that Habakkuk is a prophet. And so if there's anyone who has communication with God and from God, it would be the prophet. And this is not just an ordinary person in his time. This is not just anybody in Judah. This is a prophet, a man who has communication, again, with God and from God. And that man, Habakkuk, says, how long will I cry? I keep talking to God and nothing seems to change. I keep digging deep within my soul and finding myself agitated and frustrated. People keep telling me to pray, and I've been praying and nothing seems to change. I find myself questioning, why do bad things happen to good people? And why do good things happen for bad folk? It seems like bad folk never catch a cold, but good people take one step forward and life knocks them 2 steps back. How long, O Lord, shall I cry? How many more times do I need to pray? How much more can I say? Have I perhaps not used the right words, or have I not formed the right phrases? What is it that can meet me in the midnight hour? What word from God can help me when I have a midnight experience in the middle of the day? How long shall I cry? For Habakkuk, he's dealing with painful problems around him. Habakkuk is addressing a problem in Judah, and Judah was oppressed by the Babylonians. Now, if you're not a student of history and don't know much about the Babylonians, God's people were oppressed by the Babylonian Empire, and they were a brute and ruthless group of people. They cared for none other than their own. In your study, you can look at chapter 2 and discover some of the things that were reminiscent of his painful reality in dealing with the Babylonian Empire. In chapter 2 and verse number 8, it talks about how the Babylonians plundered nations around them, and they did not spare Judah when they were plundering or going around seizing and taking advantage of other nations. And when you feel you have been taken advantage of, that is a violation and an insecurity that'll make you cry out to God. In verses 9 and 10 of Habakkuk chapter 2, we see that the same group of people who had plundered them, they enriched and empowered themselves by hurting other people. One of the realities of human existence is everybody doesn't know Jesus. And there are some people who go to bed at night trying to figure out how to unsettle you. And they wake up in the morning energized with trying to hurt you. There are people who get their kicks bringing pain and problems to your life. There are people who enjoy your discomfort and displeasure. They live to kill you, and they are honored to dishonor you. We still in Habakkuk 2, looking at verses 12 and 13, we see that one of the ways the Babylonians would build their cities is that they would go and take cities by bloodshed. They did not care what it took. They had by any means necessary mentality. They killed anybody who got in their way. They were a ruthless group of people. And when folk don't mind killing you, it'll make you say, Lord, how long shall I cry? And then in Habakkuk 2, verses 15 and 16, the Bible declares that they disgraced the nations around them. They didn't just plunder from those nations and take their cities, but they went out of their way to dishonor them and to disgrace them and to make a shame out of those cities and those nations around them. It is against this backdrop that Habakkuk raises the question, how many more prayers can I pray before God intervenes? How much more talking to God? God, don't you see what I see? There is violence all around me. Don't you see it, Father? There's bloodshed. Don't you see it? I'm crying out, and God seems to be silent. That is Habakkuk's frustration, and if we are to be honest, we have those frustrations. Why doesn't God not heal when we see sickness? Why does he not bring peace when we experience violence? Why does God not comfort us when we are uneasy? Why does God not respond quickly to our prayer requests? Well, some thoughts to look at in this. We know about slow cookers and food that took hours to prepare, but now we have fast food. We knew what it was like to have slow internet service, and you dialed up and you heard that funny noise, bzzz, boom, bong, and your internet service hopefully connected. But now we have fiber optics, and we get on the internet. It's high-speed internet. When we used to ship stuff or wait for something to be shipped, it was 6 to 8 weeks for shipping. Now shipping is next day. And depending on what you get from Amazon, tasted better coming out the fall than when you cooked it the first time. But it took about 30 minutes or an hour to warm it up. Now we've got microwaves, and so modern convenience has spoiled us in that we want everything right now. We don't want to wait. We've got instant coffee. Cornbread, and she had to go through the process of cutting up her celery and going through a cooking. You didn't bother her when she was in the kitchen, and you left her. That was her territory, and she made her dressing. It took a few hours, but you eventually got the dressing. Now we can go to the store and have dressing in 10-15 minutes. Spoiled by speed and that is what makes us frustrated in prayer, because prayer is not like a microwave. It's not like instant coffee or instant rice, fast food or expedited shipping or high-speed internet, and we get frustrated with faith because faith does not give us results right away. So how do we understand when faith is frustrating? Well, the first thing is we've got to trust God's timing. I want you to notice a peculiar thing in Habakkuk chapter 1. And I want you to notice something in Habakkuk chapter 2. So I want you to go back to chapter 1 and look at verse number 1, because I want us to see we've got to trust God. In Habakkuk chapter 2,